are so excited today to have Justin Berk from Justin Weather here talking. He came to Glade Elementary School today for your Faith in the Flakes program. And we were so honored and so excited to have him come to our teeny tiny little town. And I had some parents ask some questions because
by the way, tiny towns are the best.
They are. Yeah. They are. Where are you from?
Originally?
Uh-huh.
New York City. Not a tiny town.
No.
But we moved to a tiny town north. That's actually, I got into weather knowing the difference between New York City weather and the mountains to the north where we moved. My mother still taught and was driving 60 miles each way every day. So we knew how different the weather was.
Okay, so that now you're kind of, your mom was a teacher?
Oh yeah, both my parents were actually.
Mine too, and so that's why you're good out there with the kids. I think that's probably why you like teaching.
My dad for 15 years taught chemistry. Do you mind if I share this?
Go.
Don't
ever stop talking.
My dad, look, that's dangerous. I need to know when to shut up. My dad taught middle school chemistry in Co-op City in the South Bronx, which is a rough neighborhood. And he would show up every day with a briefcase and a three-piece suit because his dad taught him you got to dress the role. The kids respected him, but my dad would like blow stuff up in class, and he had the highest attendance rates. When I would come as a kid,
professor.
Yeah, but in a really like cool way that got the kids super excited. And when I would come and on my days off, and he'd shove me in the back room and he'd do experiments to keep us busy.
Hold on, is that like a universal science teacher's kid experience?
Think so. Yeah.
Because my dad, I remember sitting in the back, Bunsen burners, all kinds of stuff, and they'd be like...
We did the cheek swab, and you would put under a microscope, so I was fascinated by watching these little cells
You're like, man, I'm gross.
So my dad would tell a story on how he does one thing every year where it would cause a little explosion, and there would be a mark left on the ceiling tile that he would circle with a marker and date. And kids would come back years later, Mr. Berk, is it still up there? Is it still up there?
That's so cool.
So my favorite story about my dad, we were visiting on winter break to Mexico City, and we crossed the street from our hotel. We got on a bus, and there was a couple riding down, chasing the bus, and people on the bus like stop in Spanish, and the bus driver didn't want to stop for the silly Americans. But he finally had to stop a few blocks away. So huffing and puffing, this couple gets on, they pay their fare, and they start walking to the back. Mr. Berk, Mr. Berk. It turned out to be my dad's student on his honeymoon in Mexico City, and every story my dad told me at that moment became real.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's what a teacher does?
Yep.
And that's awesome.
Yes. So I was a teacher for 10 years before I did anything else, and my former students, they've never left my life. Now they're in their 30s and they just like hang out. Our kids hang out. Like it's pretty cool.
And you have Facebook and they probably
Yep.
That's awesome. That's great.
Okay, so let's start with our questions from our parents first. Okay, so what helps you stay curious about meteorology?
I just love weather. I mean, it was my dad being a science teacher, and I'm always curious about the weather. I know how different it is. I live in a place that I don't like to announce publicly for privacy reasons. I still have a kid in high school, but I'm on a hill, and I love that I get to see sometimes valley fog below my house. I get to see storms rolling in from miles away. And I know where I'm driving, it's often going to be different. So even just that, we call it microclimate, how different the weather can be in a short drive.
Yes.
Maryland is fascinating and challenging and frustrating, and I've earned every gray hair. And the ones that are lost or were lost for a good reason, because it's not easy. It really isn't in central Maryland, or just the whole state, just with the wide variety of weather we have. But that's the challenge, is to outsmart or think like Mother Nature, and then be able to present it in a way that, you know.
Are other states as diverse weather-wise as ours?
I think just about everyone on the East Coast. That I-95 corridor, every city has that. North and west gets more snow. The coast usually gets more rain. People in the Midwest, I mean, it's wide open, it's flat. It's either going to hit or it's going to miss. And I think it's a lot easier. Every state, I hate to say this, but they all claim the saying, wait 5 minutes and the weather's going to change.
Yeah.
They all do.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But you're here, but even here, like even in Frederick, you know, you can see how different it is. You got a mountain range right there, and you drive 10 miles and you can see a wide variety.
Definitely. For young kids, what are some resources that they can use outside of school for like learning more about weather and meteorology if they want to kind of go the same path as you?
I love books. I mean, I still think that there's something special about looking at a page, thumbing through it. So there's a book. I'm not endorsed by any of this, but I hope they still sell it. The USA Today weather book. So the USA Today newspaper had a great weather section. The back of the front fold, it was color, and their illustrator put a book together of all wide variety of weather. It can take some really complex topics, but a lot of it is really just for the average person, which means it can apply down to children with colorful 3D graphics to describe, how the weather works.
Nice.
And I'd start there simply because it's colorful and it may get them to look deeper. And the thing about having it on a page versus a screen is that it's easy to go back to, thumb through. Someone who's artistic may want to draw because the graphics are really that cool.
You also mentioned in the program the importance of kids, not just weather and meteorology, but they need to know geography as well, because knowing where all these places are located and how each of their ecosystems and weather is affected.
And I love Frederick because you got a wall of land that's right there. Like you can see the mountain, and depending on the season, in the fall, you can see the leaves change at different times in different elevations or around the corner based on how much sunlight. You may get above the fog, same thing, see some valley fog. And while everything is completely covered now, you probably have seen times when parts of Frederick are just brown and other parts are still covered with snow. And knowing why that is just based on looking at a map, there's a big mountain there, and that's not a mountain.
Right.
It could be that simple.
Yeah. One of our parents wanted to know, what is the most challenging part of predicting the weather? I think
getting
the
it
word
right.
See, we're being honest here, okay? What is the hardest part? Getting it right.
Well,
like that most recent snowstorm. I mean, I saw those totals going up, and then I think you were the first person who was kind of like, hold on. Like
honestly, I think the most challenging thing right now is social media, because a lot of the stuff that I look at, computer models, I had to learn the science. I had to learn the math behind how those things, operates. And now we have these really beautiful displays that many websites have. And, your average, Joe Schmo can get access to computer models. And they just take the most exaggerated stuff, put it online, it goes viral. And they're making money off of social media. So they want it's like tabloid. It's like going to the supermarket and looking at the Examiner and the Inquirer or whatever. And when I was, that storm, people start talking 2 weeks out. I have a policy of not talking until it's a week away. I can see it, but I also know, due to the laws of physics, chemistry, and the chaos theory, that farther out in time, the reliability is low. Why get people excited and then have it be nothing? So when we're within a week, it's reasonable. People were talking about these ridiculous snow totals. I remember seeing a map that had like 47 inches in some parts. Yeah. And no. But the challenging thing is, most people don't remember where they saw it. They just know they saw it, and they lump us all in together.
Right.
So I never did that. And when I put my snow forecast out, which I have a policy of 3 days, 72 hours. That's when you have a legitimate idea of the range of snow. And I try to go low and then inch up if I need to, because if you start high and you have to back off, it looks like you're crying wolf.
Right.
And
the hysteria gets started.
Exactly. So I really like to think that a lot of the people who follow my stuff know what I said and know that I didn't do the exaggeration. And honestly, my first call was almost identical to my final call. The only issue was really when we turn over to sleet, which was a really rare thing in that. Having 6
in that
hours,
amount of sleet, my gosh.
Yeah, like 3-4 inches of sleet. I saw the computer modeling for that, and I didn't believe it because I've never seen that much sleet before.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that was probably the challenge, and I try to be specific with my information enough so that people hopefully can identify my call versus somebody else who's blowing it out of proportion. So I think that, and you want people to be able to understand. The other difference is what I've run into from my TV career and even online. You can always go back and point to the map, but when you say a number, let's say there's a range of 1 to 3 inches in Annapolis, 3 to 6 in Baltimore, and here in Frederick, you're going to hit 6 to 10. I'm just giving a general storm. Most people, they hear 10.
Right.
Everything else is noise.
Yeah.
And that person in Annapolis is like, you said 10 inches. Well, if you're not specific about Annapolis, then the information gets muddy.
And then I love when we get those, like, so I went to college in Southern Maryland, I went to St. Mary's.
Oh.
And when you get that rare snowstorm where St. Mary's get, like, usually St. Mary's doesn't get anything.
You know what? The last couple of years they got, yeah.
But then they get hit, and it's like, I mean, the whole thing shuts down. They act like they're in Georgia. Like, they can't do anything. And then the rest of the state is like, what just happened down there?
Right, so I'm originally from New York, and I went to school in upstate New York. I've worked in the snow belt of Syracuse and Binghamton. I know snow. I love snow. I have a truck. I literally go out and drive in the snow just for fun. But I understand what it does to people. I have a 16-year-old who's got his permit now, and I had him out in every snowfall we've had this winter just to get him used to.
Right. No, I get it. I mean, if I learned, I probably would be a little bit better. But
and that's
I see one flake and I'm canceling all my appointments for the rest of the day. Yeah.
But I know that person.
Yes.
Besides you, there's a whole bunch of you.
Yes.
And so I gotta cater to the common denominator. So trust me, people will get mad.
People will have to go to work. You know,
they have no choice.
You have to, like, you know, give them realistic expectations of what's going on out there.
And also understanding, like you said, like, so I cover the entire state of Maryland, Southern PA, Delaware, Northern Virginia, West Virginia. It's a big area, wide variety. And people who live in the snow belt, they know how to deal with it. And people who don't, people who live St. Mary's or the Eastern Shore, and if you have like 1 or 2 plows in the whole county, things are going to be
dicey,
shut down for a while. You know, the other issue is sometimes those little storms are a big deal. I don't know if you remember early, it may have been the 5th of December.
Yes, I do.
Here in Frederick, there were problems because it was less than an inch of snow, but it happened at the morning commute, and some of these roads were shut down for like 2 hours because of the spinouts.
And then the schools were getting so much heat. So much heat. I mean, what do you think of this is off script because, but like, you know, sometimes they make good calls, sometimes they make bad calls. What are your thoughts on, you know, when people go, I mean, they go crazy when the schools make a bad call.
As a parent,
are they able, what do you think, what goes into making the call? And tell me what your ideas, thoughts are as a parent, as a scientist.
I've worked with school systems. I haven't worked with Frederick, so I'm never responsible for the call here.
Don't call him.
Whether they watch my page or not, I mean, their call, you know, they have their own protocol. What was it, Friday when they closed school early, and I didn't know why they made that decision. I didn't see the snow being a problem that early, but they made the call. A lot of counties made the call. And I go back to a superintendent, and this is at least 10 years ago, and I remember an interview where he said he would rather deal with 100 angry phone calls from parents than go to one funeral. And that's it. And we live in a litigious society, in a litigious state. The Eastern Shore of Maryland, they have 90-minute fog delays because there was a fatal bus accident. And all you need is one. You don't want one more because you could look back and be like, didn't you learn your lesson? So we live in a society where we grew up and it's like, toughen up, go to school. I mean, where I grew up, we'd have 3 to 5 inches. I knew if we didn't have over 5 inches, we're just going to have a 2-hour delay. And we're still going while it's snowing.
Right.
That doesn't happen now. And the other issue, I live in a very hilly area. I have one kid in college, and now my 16-year-old who's driving. And I'm like, you know, I trust him. I will trust him when he gets his license. But I don't know if I trust everybody else. So now you're dealing with the little kids who might be scared on a bus that could spin out or someone bumps into them. And the same thing with 16, 17-year-old kids who are driving.
That's true.
And they're not seasoned.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's all the stuff that goes into it. And now that we have virtual...
what's it called? Daylight savings time. A couple kids got hit when it was dark out, you know, darker earlier in the morning, and then they said, we're keeping it this way forever because, you know, we're setting the clocks back because kids are going to get hurt. Kids who are walking to school.
Yeah, well, now, I mean, they're still debating on whether we stop daylight savings or not.
What do you think?
I don't, it's a lose-lose. I mean, do you want a later sunrise?
Wide-scale depression?
Right. Well,
that's me.
It's 6 1/2 dozen the hour. Like, if you're dealing with a dark morning or a dark afternoon. So, that's a tough call. Thankfully, it's not up to me.
That's true. But that's not up to any of us.
I thought Congress, I know they voted in the House.
There are some states that, like Arizona doesn't do it. There are some states that are just like, I'm not participating. But.
Yeah.
So are there, or if there are, what are some effective tools that we can use to predict the weather from our house?
To what the weather?
Predict the weather, or to better understand the weather.
You know, I mean, obviously a home weather station.
Yeah.
You can see what I mean. Today, this was
the barometric pressure, right?
So the barometric pressure dropping obviously is well. I don't want to say obviously because if you don't have a
right.
But the barometric pressure is going to indicate that usually a storm's rolling. Some people, I call them the grandma thermometer, will be sensitive to that air pressure. Right. So, but
I get a migraine whenever it's gonna rain. I get a migraine.
You know it, yeah. And if you can anticipate ahead of time, Like if you can tell ahead of time, like you know the barometric pressure is going to drop because the storm's going to approach. Can you prepare? Like, can you take that Excedrin an hour earlier? Will that help? All right, so there's that. And yeah, having a weather station, people like to have some sense of control. Like, what's it at my house? And you know, there's pretty decent equipment you can get for $100, $200 that'll connect to the Wi-Fi, and you can nap on your phone. You can see what the weather is there. Especially if you're commuting and you're coming from, let's say, Baltimore, or you're coming from DC, and it's wet there. Is it going to be icy or snowing at the house?
That's a good thought.
That's probably the best. A morning like this morning, there was a huge range of temperatures. Frederick Airport got down to -1. And yet there are other places that were 10, 15 degrees. So you have a big change in temperature on a clear, cold morning like this.
And tomorrow's going to be 40?
In the afternoon, close to 40, yeah.
Thank goodness.
It's going to feel like a heat wave.
So
you know, we had a 40-degree day last week.
We did?
And you see, you already forgot it.
So we're all just guilty of like what's going on right now.
Right, we have short-term memory.
Okay.
We totally, yeah, I get that.
So tell me more about your education. You talked a little bit to the kids, but like for more adult audiences, like what programs did you go to? What exact education do you have?
I have a Bachelor's of Science in Meteorology from Cornell University.
Not bad, not bad.
Thanks. Well, so you know what? I might as well share this other little nugget. So my dad was a science teacher. I love math and science. Like those were my best subjects. And when I got to college, I already did well in calculus. I had to retake calculus. And calculus in college was so different than calculus in high school. One reason being my TA was not native, so we could barely understand what he was saying, so we pretty much had to teach ourselves. And college level was definitely much more intense, and it was all applicable to what meteorology. A lot of my meteorology classes were heavily based in calculus and physics. But it was my second year at Cornell that I found out that I'm dyslexic.
Oh.
My brother got tested because he wanted to take the LSATs, go to law school, and wanted to know if he needed and could qualify for getting more time. And once he, you know, once they found out he was, my dad always thought he was, my parents were like, you might as well get tested. And I got tested, and I found out that I'm dyslexic, and it was a meteorology class in computer programming called Fortran, ancient computer language, which we had a project at the end of the year that I had to write a program to basically go to the local weather station, extract data, and apply this formula to calculate wind chill. And it took up about 30 pages of code on a dot matrix printout. That took forever to print out. Well, I couldn't figure out something. I couldn't for the life of me. And I went to my professor, and I pleaded with him for more time. And I now had a letter that said I'm dyslexic. And I swear, Mark Wysocki was my professor, and I swear he was making me chase him down, and it took a couple of days. And I begged him if he would give me, I guess to the end of the week.
An accommodation.
And he gave me actually one of the best pieces of advice. And he said, look, I will give you an extra week to complete the project if you make me one promise. Never use this again. He said, you got to this school without knowing you were dyslexic. Don't use that letter to get through the rest of your classes. And best advice I ever got. And I never used it again. And he was right. And I had a challenge because, you know, numbers were easy. Reading long text, that was my problem. My notes were chicken scratch, but I knew exactly where my scratches were. And I could tell you what page in my notes and what line something was. But I was forced to adapt and to learn. And I think it's helped me because I can figure out problems differently than other people. I approach them differently. So the math and science was intensive, but I found what I thought was a hindrance actually turned into I think an advantage. And I've actually spoken to some schools in the area that have kids who are dyslexic. And I don't think it's a learning disability. I've actually met a lot of people who I think are really intelligent, and there's a long list of people from Albert Einstein to a bunch of actors who are very well accomplished. And I think same thing, they had
kind of turning it into a superpower.
Yeah, they had to find a different way to problem solve.
Yeah. Okay, so now we were talking about we were talking with the kids. We had like a little bit of a watered down version, but here in Walkersville, we would like to know what makes Frederick County different as far as weather. You were saying there's like pockets, and then maybe I have some questions about Walkersville, so we'll start with Frederick County.
What people don't realize is Frederick itself is a bowl. Like you're at the bottom of the mountain, but the elevation of Frederick is at the bottom. You have the Catoctin Ridge here, and then you have Mount Airy, who's almost 1,000 feet. So you have, these roughly 1,700 foot mountains, 1,000 feet on both, and there's a bowl in the middle. And a lot of times you can see stuff on radar approaching and it just breaks up or it just doesn't reach the ground. And it's very frustrating because it's all around, but in the population center, they're like, where is this stuff? And I showed a map, the snowfall across, the county. And, Frederick's at the base of the mountains, Frederick's well inland, and the average snowfall in Frederick is about the same as BWI Airport. But in between, there's like a lot of snow in the western suburbs of Baltimore.
Right.
So Frederick County, you have this bowl compared to the northern part of the county. Once you head out towards Thurmont, Sevillesville, where not only you have the higher mountains, but just because of the track of the land, the topography, the way the Appalachians are shaped, the average snowfall in northern Frederick County could be upwards of 40 inches, which is double that of Frederick.
Wow.
So a 20-inch range across maybe a 20-mile span. Big difference. And most people would be like, all right, top of the mountain's going to get more snow versus the bottom of the mountain. But you have these little pockets. Walkersville is a little bit to the northeast. So you get more than Frederick, but you're still sometimes in the bowl. Sometimes you're not.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what direction the wind is blowing. The wind is blowing due west. It's literally bumping up into the mountain range. And it creates what's called a rain shadow effect. So the moisture goes up the mountains, dumps out, and then when the air comes down the other side, it actually causes the air column to expand and seemingly dry out. That's why you get a bowl, or you get this like dry.
I just felt like I was in science class. This is awesome.
Rain shadow.
No, I love it.
Did my diagrams work?
Yes. Okay, so this might sound like I'm like one of those like redneck people on the news and be like, why? But sometimes you need that. It is so damn windy here. It is so windy. Why? Would it be windier here? Then like I have a friend who would I had a friend who would come here and she would walk with me at the park across the street. She'd say, gosh, when I left my house in Frederick, it is fine. Here it is so windy all the time. Is it because farmland? We don't have any trees to like.
That's actually part
buildings?
of it, and you're downwind of the mountains. So there's a miniature version. It's called a katabatic wind. When you get air, so the rain shadow. Seattle, Washington is a great example. The air comes off the Pacific and it bumps into the mountain range, and they get dumped with a whole bunch of rain. The Olympic Peninsula is there. And on the other side, a place like Spokane, Washington is called the high desert because the moisture rings out on the other side. It dries out. And in the process of the air going up over the mountain and dumping out rain and then drying out the other side, that downslope is a katabatic wind that causes the air to dry out but also speed up. A greater example is the Santa Ana wind in Southern California. And those are the ones that can burst 80 to 100 mile per hour and spark or expand fires. Colorado and other parts of the Rockies, they have the same thing. It's called a Chinook wind. In Europe, it's called a fawn. These are all in the katabatic wind category. So we have that here in Frederick County when the air is coming over the mountain and down the other side. You also have these wide open fields. One of the reasons there's wide open fields is because it's a windy place. So a lot of trees didn't really take a good hold. In addition to it being farmland. You have the same thing out in Colorado, like right up against the mountains. You have Denver, and you have these wide open plains because the wind comes over the mountains and just accelerates. Yeah.
Speaking of, are you like a European? What's the other model? Hold on.
Oh gosh, there's there's so many computer models, which is so funny. Like short range, there's these high resolution models, and honestly, there's like a dozen of them.
Do you use those?
I'll use them depending on different conditions.
Okay.
The HRRR, the high resolution rapid refresh model. The NAM is a North American model, 3 kilometer grid. I use those two usually when we're in a 24 to 36 hour like window of something coming. The American model, the GFS, the Global Forecast System, I have diplomatically renamed the GOOFS model because it will often produce a phantom snowstorm that disappears, but that's the stuff that people are putting on social media that gets all the attention, and then it doesn't work out. And I say diplomatic, and this is for us because that we're buds. I used to call it the GFS, the GOOFS, also known as the Garbage Forecast System, or the Good for Sugar.
Not a whole.
not sugar. Not sugar.
Awesome. Okay, so he's not necessarily.
But honestly, when I really started pushing my forecast on social media, so I left TV in 2012, 2013 and 2014, we had some pretty busy winters, and I really.
When was Snowmageddon?
Wait, which one was Snowmageddon?
The double.
The 2010.
2010.
Which
okay, that's what I thought.
honestly, now is the anniversary of that.
Yeah.
The second storm.
Yeah.
February 9th to 10th.
Oh.
50 inches of snow in 5 days. The greatest week of my life.
I'm sure.
But the Canadian model, and it literally comes from Environmental Canada, so they have their own meteorology center, and for some reason their modeling operates best in Arctic-dominated environments. So we have an Arctic pattern this winter, and it's actually done a really good job with a lot of storms. It does work on a lot of the foundation of the European. They're often very similar, but not exactly the same. And the European is, European Union of Scientists. They have their own meteorology center. And why, for over a decade, they have been so much better, I don't know. Why can't the Americans just replicate that? There has been millions of dollars dumped into the global forecast system. And it still boggles my mind how it's almost embarrassing how bad it is. So I don't even look at it anymore. Now there's an AI version of it. Actually, all these models have their own AI, which is still imperfect, but it runs its own machine learning to try to learn from its mistakes. So when we mention these models, and you were actually starting off with the European and the Canadian, what you see, what I often show is something called the deterministic, which is the plot that is most likely determined to be most likely that's presented for public consumption. But the models actually run various different scenarios. So the European actually has what's called an ensemble. The ensemble has 50 different members. It'll run slightly different variations, 50 of them. I can look and scan all those for snow. If you've ever seen a map that says the odds of getting an inch or 3 inches of snow, it's based on that model's 50 different solutions and how many of them are saying you're going to get that much snow. It then calculates the percentage.
There's still even
within
the crappy models. There's still a lot going into
yeah,
it.
and there's still maybe a version that you don't see that actually did a better job. We just overlooked it.
Yeah.
So
the American model seems like the American model in the world, which is just a slightly sensationalist take on things, right? Can we say that?
It's funny you say that, but it's still. I call them phantom storms because most of the time they never come to fruition. Which brings back to the beginning. What's the most challenging thing is the fact that this stuff is readily available, and there are people who became popular online because they sensationalize something.
Yeah.
And it amazes me that how many people are still following for this egregious, sensational stuff that doesn't come to fruition, and then they'll still go there and they'll still share it, and then it becomes the conversation. Hey, we're gonna get 47 inches of snow, and oh, you guys blew it because we only got 10.
Right. This is actually, I told you that my dad was an earth science teacher in high school in Montgomery County, and he asked this. He says this kind of rhetorically, but I have you here, so why not ask? He's like, where did this polar vortex come from? He's like, my dad's 80 years old. He's like, I didn't hear about this until about 10 years ago.
Always existed.
But it didn't happen here in Maryland, or what is?
No, we just had it. We just never talked. I mean, talk about sensationalism. TV news.
Polar vortex sounds exciting.
TV. Oh well, so great story. So I used to teach Stevenson.
Okay.
And I actually used to air a clip of a documentary of the 1993 El Nino. That it was 89, 93, and forgive me because now it's going on camera. But that called 87. I got all my names dates mixed up. But it was the El Nino that caused billions of dollars of destruction in California, and it was. El Nino has been known since the 1800s. El Nino actually got named,
No, but I used to be a Spanish teacher. Go.
Okay. Well, what's El Nino?
The boy.
All right.
And then La Nina's the girl.
So El Nino, they noticed in Peruvian fishermen, the west coast of South America, noticed around Christmas time that every 3 to 7 years the water temperature would change, and because they were fishing, that it would change the migratory path. And
so
truly affect their livelihood. They knew that, and then scientists started to make this connection of the movement and expansion and shifting of warm water in the Pacific Ocean, and how that dictated storm tracks into North America. And when they started to retroactively connect, hey, this is what the fishermen said this year, and this is what we had, then they basically started putting more research, and it was really in the 1990s when we started putting more remote buoy sensors out into the ocean, and now we have satellites that are measuring this thing constantly, so we can draw more connection and correlation. Anyway, so El Nino was a thing that existed for 100 years, but the news picked up on it, and it became so popular. True story, in California, they actually found a guy listed in the phone book as El Nino, and people were calling him off the hook, blaming him for all the destructive weather in California. He had to actually cancel his number and go into hiding because people wanted his head.
And do you remember the Chris Farley scare? The El Nino?
Oh yeah, I am El Nino.
But that was kind of when it became like more like started becoming mainstream and people knew what El Nino
right.
was.
And so polar vortex, honestly,
It's been there.
It really is circulation. So there are these three. So your dad, he probably knows about the Hadley cell model. And
I'm gonna tell him this, and he's gonna be like, "Yes,
yes."
So excited.
So the Hadley
Talk
cell,
nerdy to me.
the Hadley cell is based off of the fact that if you get sun shining in a spot like the equator, it's going to cause rising air. That rising air hits the top of the troposphere, or weather portion of the atmosphere, and spreads out, and then drops down at a certain level, and then comes back in. Well, where you get rising air, you have a vacuum. Air has to rush in to fill its place. If you're now on the equator, where you have the maximum solar radiation, you have rising air and air filling in from both sides. You actually now create a storm zone because you're forcing convergence and rising air and clouds. And there's actually a band across the planet that migrates north and south with the seasons called the intertropical convergence zone. Well, that model, that Hadley cell, there's a 3-cell model that actually fits between the equator, the mid-latitudes, and across the poles. And the 3-cell model includes the polar vortex that has a circulation that orbits around. And due to other influences, because our world is not perfect, that spiral circulation around the North Pole, if it's really, really strong, it locks the cold air up. That's what happened in our winter of 2021 and even 2022. A strong polar vortex prevents cold air from coming south. We end up with nearly snowless and very mild winters. When that thing gets weakened, that circulation starts to wobble, and it'll fall into patterns like we have this winter, where we're basically getting all that cold air flushing to the East Coast and the eastern U.S.
This is fascinating.
So,
I love this.
And I hate doing this with my hands because I would love to, I see the diagrams in my head.
No, I see the arrows, I see the things.
But it existed, but it sounded so like it's a quick, easy term. It sounds dramatic. And sadly, the media ruined it.
Okay, but no, that's valuable to know. Like, sometimes we have to temper this in our brain.
You know, the other one, I'm curious if your dad knows bomb cyclone.
Yes.
I studied that in school. A bomb cyclone is defined by a storm that drops 1 millibar per hour for 24 hours, which drops 24 millibars. It's rapidly deepening, and that's the kind of storms we get usually off the East Coast that produce nor'easters and really damage.
I thought of another one that nobody knew about, quote unquote, until it passed through here. What is that? A quick storm that goes really fast. Hail, damaging. What's it called? It's a Spanish word too. And
the derecho.
Derecho, there we go. Derecho,
okay, yeah.
So I think of the words in Spanish. But a derecho is just like, people around here were like, my dad was like, well, I know what a derecho is.
What exactly does derecho translate to?
Derecho is to the right.
What?
Derecho. Or derecho is like a right. RIGHT.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. And a derecho is really just an intense line. It has to maintain like was it 65 to 85 mile per hour winds over a roughly 120 mile per hour 20 mile stretch of land. So it's not like one storm it pulses. It maintains itself. Like, we had that big derecho. I think was it 2010?
Yes.
In June.
All new roofs. Everybody was going crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And but that thing existed, and now people look for every storm. Is that a derecho?
Right.
It is interesting. We do get a lot of weather terms. So hurricane, in straight translation. Now tell me if I'm right. Does it mean hell wind?
No.
Okay, so that's
but it might be from like an indigenous language that then was, taken into Spanish.
Yeah.
That's probably where it came from. When, this is just a side note, don't have to put this on there. When, so my kid's dad is from Guatemala, right? Okay. And so the first, I think my son was very, very young, and my ex-husband was watching the news, and he told me, he was like, Allie, we can't let this, in Spanish, he tells me this, we can't let the kids outside, we can't let the boy outside because they said it's really dangerous for los niños. And I was like, what? And he was like, there's something going on with the weather, and it's really dangerous for los niños. I was like, you mean this year we're in an El Nino? And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, it's a weather phenomenon. It's not dangerous to the child. I was like, it is. That was a little teachable moment there.
But it's funny how people take a term and it really does that you basically just demonstrated how communication is so important. And the other thing I realized is, as much like my average day, I'll wake up, by 4 o'clock, and I'm going to spend 2.5 hours to put a report online by 6:30. and it doesn't matter how much time I'm going to put into my report. If there's winter season, snows more, I'll be up an hour earlier. If it's quiet, I'll maybe wake up an hour later. And the average person is going to spend the same amount of time looking at my report and not get all the details.
Right.
And if you lock into one word,
skim,
oh no.
So here is this is a good final question for us to end on. So Justin, there are some haters out there. Now there's haters on every meteorologist and but sometimes in the comments it's like, guys, chill. Like, so how do you deal with that? How do you read the comments? Do you respond, or what kind of?
So it's funny you say that, because occasionally
people get real banana shape about the weather.
I'll get a message or two.
Or I forgot, you're probably getting messages too.
But I'll get messages from people apologizing for the haters.
Oh.
And I didn't see it. A couple of people stand out because they're so
diabolical.
Or consistent. I don't think it's been that bad on my page, but then again, I'm not reading everything. I'm busy. Usually, I'll put something up, and if I have the time over the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'll go back and just try to respond to people. If I have time, a half hour later,
but you're not.
I'll go back again.
Brooding on it.
Oh no, I can't. I don't have the time.
Right.
I don't have anybody else. It's just me.
Right.
But the couple of people that are persistent, I'll use a little sass.
Yeah.
I'll try to let them know I'm a human. I don't want to pick a fight in public. You don't want to give them extra energy.
No.
That's the other thing. And there's one or two people. There's one guy in particular I know has his own page, and he disappeared for a long time. He surfaced again this winter, and he'll come in like he's the expert to answer questions for people. And I know only because people have shown me screenshots that there's almost an obsession of trying to counter whatever I'm saying. And as long as if that's good for them, just don't cross the line. But that's also why I don't try to tell people where I live.
But that's right. That's why how you're good at what you do and also consistent is because if you were to sit there and number one get derailed by what other people are saying, and also like let it affect you, then you're not going to post as regularly. You're not going to do as good of a job, and you kind of post it and you have to move on. Otherwise, you never post again, right?
But I'll occasionally at home, it's like, hey, you're on your phone. I'm like, but people took the time to ask. I will try to sit there and answer if I have the opportunity. Sometimes the conversation takes on a life of its own and people will talk to each other, which I love that it exists. And I'm grateful that I have the platform. I mean, I left TV and I had 5,000 people on my page. And the fact that it's grown to what it is now allows me to do a lot of things, allows me to come to schools like this. I have a nonprofit that is successful because we broadcast some of our events through that page. And that's wonderful. So I don't take it for granted, but you also have to understand that the keyboard cowboys are out there.
Oh yeah.
And they won't be so tough in person.
No.
Occasionally, I'll have someone who's a little bit crazy who's going to cross the line. I hope I never meet that person.
Right.
But also, I'm not going to abuse my platform and try to completely disparage that person. One of the greatest lessons I learned. So I do an event every summer. I hike and bike across the state of Maryland, and from West to Ocean City. And one year I was out, one of the guys on my team, we were some back roads, and there's a guy in a truck that literally swerved to come towards our team. And a couple of people were like, what the hell? And and this guy's like, we don't know what kind of day he's having. He may just had a fight with his wife. He just may have lost his dog. He may just be, sadistic. We don't know.
Right.
But the thing is, we don't know. And he's going on. We're going this way, he's going that way. Let's just keep the distance expanding. And, as long as no one's getting hurt, like that, stay the course. Yeah. Don't pick a fight. Life's too short. Like, why waste your energy on that stuff?
I'm going to consider that, Justin.
What is that?
Sometimes I'm a fighter.
But hey, look, I'm from New York. Like, I know. I'm a nice guy, and I do not want to cuss in public. But
me neither.
I don't. Yeah, I don't have virgin ears, and I will protect my own. I mean, trust me. If it's my own people you're going after, I will do everything to defend. But sometimes it's just not worth it.
Most times it's not worth it.
It isn't. Yeah, and I guess you experience enough in life.
I think age helps to just be like.
It does.
Back then, back in the day, hothead, crazy, and now it's like, why? What?
And every gray hair is a story, right? Yeah. Hey, you flunked that. That is a good flock of hair you got.
Oh, thank you.
But still, and seriously, but own that. And I tell my kids, and I'm like, well, this one's from you. And remember that time when you woke up in the morning? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Justin. This was really great. I
Yeah,
really
thank
enjoyed
you.
all the sciencey conversations.
I'm so glad you had some real stuff.
Ooh, thanks.
And honestly, seriously, I love small town America. I mean, I'm a New York guy. Initially, my accent comes out, but I have no desire to be in a big city.
Yeah.
I love to visit, but I love being in a small town, especially when there's a community that's tight knit, close, off the beaten path. Then the sky's darker at night. You see more stars.
Yeah, the Northern Lights a lot of times. Yeah.
That's right. You're a good spot for that.
Yeah. Thank you.